So welcome. We have Anisa Moosa here from Zambia, who works actually in Brazil as a cross-cultural worker, missionary, and I'm very excited to interview you today, hear a bit about your member care story. You mind introducing yourself a bit to us?
All right. Thank you, Harry, for this opportunity. So my name is Anisa Moosa. I was born and raised in Zambia, called into missions around the age of 26, and I joined Youth with a Mission and have been with Youth with a Mission since then. It's about 30 years now. I went to Zimbabwe first, where I went to do my initial training in missions. And it wasn't such a huge cultural jump, because my mother was from Zimbabwe. And so I could understand, the language was not a problem for me. The culture was not so different. But I think what was different was the intercultural environment in the mission. And so it was really interesting to meet people from other cultures, and not just meet, but live with people from other cultures, the US, the UK, and that. And so it was a time of real growth for me, because I learned to be able to communicate better. I'm very introverted. So in that environment, I could talk and I could share stories and experiences and make friends, So it was really, really good. It was a time of growth for me. So after 2 years in Zimbabwe, I moved to Mozambique. And I was in Mozambique for 15 years, 6 years in one place and 7 years in the other place. And as a single lady in Mozambique, it wasn't very easy. There were times of real loneliness, although being in a team. But like when I had to do trips from Mozambique to Zambia to visit my family, that was all on my own. But it was during that time, when I started to get to hear, not about member care, the word in itself, but staff development, where there was a couple who used to visit the bases, the ministries and teams, and they would encourage us. They would teach on teams and teach on sometimes on finances. And so I started to get interested in that area, because it was something that I felt was really important when I thought about my own experience and how over the years of my time in Mozambique, passing through or going through traumatic experiences and not getting to process that, and to talk about that. During that time as well, my mother died, and I didn't get any opportunity to process, experiences like that. And so when they started telling me about what they were doing, I was interested. I said, I think this is something I would like to get involved in, because I think a lot of my missionary friends and colleagues need this kind of support. And then I think it was 2 years later that YWAM started developing the member care training. And myself and some other people were the first ones to do that training in South Africa. And that's when we started to hear the word member care,
So you just mentioned other workers, they also have the same needs to process experiences. Would you say that is true for many of the the workers that you know and are aware of? And what are other needs they might have?
Yes, I would say so, because in Africa, I'm not sure, I can't say in general because I've not had experience in Northern Africa, but in our area, in the southern part of Africa, there's a lot of deaths, from malaria, HIV, and all sorts. And people really lose family members, like a lot. I know one lady who was losing a family member like every month. Personally, sitting down and being able to process that for yourself, and see where you are and how to move forward and things like that. That doesn't happen, often. And I think it's a big need for my colleagues and my friends in the mission. And then I think other needs as well for my colleagues and friends in that part of the world is many of our missionaries are in places that are really difficult and isolated. And they go there, by faith and complete obedience to the Lord, many times without financial support. And they're there and live miracles, basically, as God provides through friends bringing food, or, and these people hardly get visitors, from outside. And, there's a need for encouragement. There's a need for acknowledgement or recognition of what they're doing, And so when someone goes, like when I would go to visit these places, it was like, someone is seeing me, someone is recognizing me, someone is acknowledging that what I'm doing has value. And also another need, I think, is in the area of conflict, resolving conflicts, team conflicts, relational conflicts. Because one of the things that I've seen is that I think there's a challenge in that area. And sometimes conflicts are not resolved well, and this results in a division, people leaving the field, people leaving the team, and things like that. So I think there's also a big need to know how to resolve conflicts.
Where would you see the strength of the national mission movement in your area of Zambia, Zimbabwe, Mozambique?
I think the strength is in that, when people know that they're called, they do anything, they face whatever challenge, they don't give up, so easily. They really learn to trust God and know that God is their source, and God is the one who enables them. And we've seen a lot of fruit from the ministry of people like that, I'll give an example, like in the north of Mozambique, where a few years ago, there was like maybe 2 believers in a certain people group, and today there are more than 3,000, and it's from these missionaries, local missionaries, leaving their village, their hometown, to go to another village and stay there and just reach out to people, and so there's a lot of fruit from this kind of ministry, and it's people that just know, that they're called. So I think that is the strength, because it's the relationship with God and knowing that God has called me, I have heard God, and I'm going to go, and God is going to take care of me.
Yeah, I've heard that many times. The willingness to suffer and to do anything for the cause, for the calling, people see from God is amazing,
Mm-hmm.
We will have a conference towards the end of the year in October in Nairobi, Kenya, Global Member Care Network Conference, where member care providers, facilitators from Africa, also leaders from churches and mission movements, but also member care people from all over the world will come together. What would be an ideal outcome for Africa that you would desire there?
For member care, I would desire, maybe a greater networking, for people that don't have opportunity to connect, with others from different, maybe even different organizations or even different nations, for people to have a broader view, what is going on, in the area of member care, because people are limited and people are not able to have these connections, this networking. So that would be something that I would like to see. One of the other things is maybe if we can talk a little bit more about culturally appropriate member care interventions, in the different areas. I mentioned that I did my master's dissertation on burnout in African women, Zambian women, and really thinking about how culture influences that. And so if culture influences these different things, burnout, stress, or whatever, what can we do in terms of member care that takes that into consideration, and not just look at it, okay, the literature says this, and the literature is mostly Western based. So in our context, what can we do in terms of member care interventions that will take culture into consideration.
Contextualizing member care, learning from others around the world, how they do the contextualization. And as you say, burnout has a cultural element, and how does that play out in Africa, in other African cultures and around the world, and learning from one another. And I really like developing your own voices. Well, you have your own voices, developing out of those voices resources that can be distributed and to other nations. I really like this. Tell me a bit about you now live in Brazil. So this is a very, very different environment. What is that like for an African missionary to live in Latin America?
That's a good question. I must say that I'm still in the transition process. I didn't realize transition could take so long. But yeah, and I am in Brazil because my husband is Brazilian, and we had been planning for a while to move back to Brazil and develop a member care center here. So that's what we are working on. And so I had an idea in my mind of what it would be like here, but it's not what I expected. So in many ways, Brazilians are similar, to Africans, but there's a difference in Brazilians are more expressive, let me say, and it's very important here for someone to say what they think, which is very different from where I come from. That is still a big challenge for me here. The thing about expressing, and being vocal, and I'm not that. So I think that's the biggest challenge for me here. But in general, the difference is not that much. But it could also be because before coming here, I was already used to multicultural, intercultural environments, and also with Brazilians, being married to a Brazilian for 10 years.
Speak Portuguese through
yes,
Mozambique as well.
The language was not an issue, is not an issue. And so, so we're adapting well. I'm adapting well. I must say my husband is also adapting because he was in Africa for about 10 years. And so it is a cultural adjustment for him as well, being back.
So we have multicultural marriage as well, and living cross-culturally.
Yes.
Great. Thank you for the interview, Anisa. Really, really great to hear from you, and hope to see you at the conference in Kenya that happens, Global Member Care Conference that happens in Nairobi, October 28 to November 1. All the best for your ministry and the start of a member care center in Brazil. Looking forward seeing you soon.
Thank you so much, Harry.